This presentation is a introduction to what Blender is, what you can do with it, how it can be used for 3D printing, and also a demo and optional workshop, which will probably extend it into a longer demo instead, since none of you have any computer with you. So my name is Markus Kruse, and I'm a part-time professional 3D artist, and Blender is my main tool, my only tool, apart from the slicer, of course. The rest of the time I dedicate to my family, my cats, and I also work as an IT architect. The agenda for today: first, an intro about Blender, roughly 15 minutes, and demo and workshop. And as I said, probably be a 45-minute demo. During the presentation, there will be rewards for asking questions. Haribo, gummy bears. So I rather have this be a dialogue with you rather than a monologue. So ask questions all the time if there's anything you want to know. No one's going to participate in the workshop. Fine. Right. What is Blender? Blender answers that is itself with its mission statement that's quoted on their webpage. Provide individual artists and small teams with complete, free, and open source 3D creation pipeline. Yeah, quite clear. But what does that mean? It doesn't cost anything, and you can use it for anything you want. Even commercial projects. It aims to cover everything that you can imagine doing with a 3D application. Of course, you can create 3D models, and you can sculpt with it, like digital clay. There are, of course, other applications. Please come in if you want to.
I'm coming. I'll be back.
Yeah, no problem. There are applications dedicated to 3D sculpting, and Blender isn't exactly like them, but it's still pretty good. You can give your models a 3D texture and material properties such as shininess, bump mapping, normals, and so on. You can simulate things. You can simulate cloth, like clothing and falling curtains. You can simulate rigid physics, bunch of boxes falling over. You can simulate fire, fluids, smoke, hair, fur, and so on. So just set the initial condition and press play, and then you will see the simulation unfolding. You can, of course, use it for rendering. You can make photorealistic images. You can animate with it. You can make a character. You can have that character move around, walk, and that sort of things. You can use it for virtual effects. That is mixing real live footage with rendered objects. So say that I film this classroom. I can then in Blender track how my camera moves through the room and add 3D objects inside that footage. Like make my own Terminator 2 movie. What about 3D printing? Not all of the side can be used for 3D, but still it's a modeler. You can sculpt organic shapes, creatures, or trees, or anything organic that works very well. You can export your to the STL 3D. It's an add-on, but it's bundled in the original download. So you just have to go into the settings and enable it. The 3D printing add-on checks the quality of your model. So is it manifold? Does it have self-intersecting geometry? And it can show you lots of these errors. It's not foolproof, but it works very good. So you can see that this model is not watertight. It's a self-intersecting geometry. Show you where it self-intersects, so you can fix it. The remesh modifier is a function to redo the model from scratch with new geometry, hopefully fixing the decimate modifier. If you have a model with too many polygons, tiny details, you may want to use the decimate modifier. You can reduce the number of polygons so the model will be easier to work with and still keeping the shape of the model. And it does a very good job preserving details while still reducing the number of polygons. I will show that later. But since it's free, how can it work? What makes Blender a success? It's a non-profit Dutch organization that works with improving Blender, based in Amsterdam, and they do fundraisers every now and then. Now they have raised I think a couple of $100,000, and they have put together a team of Blender. It's going to be great. Also, the Blender Foundation organizes open movies once every 2 or 3 years. There is a huge community. Since it's free, a lot of people are going to use it and for content, and builds up this huge positive community. Very good and helpful forum if you need help or inspiration, critique. Also, there's a very helpful question and answer site, a little more focused towards just questions. How can I do this? And there are a ton of tutorials on YouTube. So if you have never seen Blender before, for instance, there is Andrew Price has made about I'm about to show you, but probably it's a series of tutorials that you can learn more and more. The open way. The foundation gathers a group of developers, and Archer is not a program that has a value. If it doesn't provide value to the artists, it's no use. That's why they bring together developers and artists at the application, and the short around with all the scenes and so on. And often they focus on one aspect of the program to and have to enhance, like the animation system or the renderer or the collaboration tools. Last one is Agent 327, Operation Barbershop. It's on YouTube and it's hilarious. We're going to watch a couple of seconds from it. Some of you might recognize the here's like this as the interesting Cosmos land formats. It's also only so this one is 327. A lot. I think pretty a lot of interesting and swap actions with Unity upload, or you can download others' work with a liberal license, so you can use them for your own projects. I need a dog in this scene. Maybe someone already did it. You don't have to do it from scratch. Right. Before we jump into the demo, any questions? Will I have to eat all this myself? Yeah. We'll see. So this is the main Blender GUI. You can see my mouse pointer. That yes, you can change how everything is laid out here. There are lots of different windows. This one is the 3D view. You'll do most of your modeling here, and this down here is the timeline. If you're going to animate, you're going to use that, but we're only going to model, so let's get rid of it. There are lots of different window types that like any window can become any. I can have another 3D view here if I want to. Say that I want the rendered version here. Let's go back to the outliner. It's kind of like a list of objects under. If I just add a bit more geometry here, you can see that now it's a bit more interesting compared to the cube. One thing to note with the modifiers is that they don't change the original model. They can be toggled on and off. They can be deleted, and I will get my original model back. I can also stack them. So first we have this subsurf modifier, and then we add yet another modifier, the displace. It's not done yet. Right, so now we have a strange shape here, and my original cube is still here, but I can add these modifiers. I can also apply them. That makes the edits final. Now the cube is gone, and I have this instead. Can show the decimate modifier. Now, some of these polygons here define the shape more than others. and we can remove a lot of the others while still maintaining the shape. So this is the ratio. I want to reduce the number of polygons by, say, to 0.2. So let's keep 20% of the polygons. And this is the original. This is the reduced version. I still have this rather sharp edge here. I can say that's a bit too much for my taste. So 0.5, I have reduced the number of polygons down to half. Pretty good. I can, of course, 5%.
Do you also have the ordinary CAD tools, like the loft?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you import other formats and use this?
Yes.
Meshing?
Absolutely. Let's dive into that question first. So the question was, is there the ordinary CAD tools available? Yes. Let's first talk about the object mode. Now it's of different objects like this. I can select them and move them around. I can rotate them and so on. But to change one object, I press Tab to go into edit mode. I can select the number of the edges here, or the faces, sorry. I can extrude them. I can insert them, extrude them again. I add an edge loop around here. I can scale that down. I can bevel it. Was it tools like this that you had in mind? Yeah. So about the imports. Here in the file menu, we have a number of import formats that is built and into Blender by default. So but also FBX, 3ds, DAE. But if we go into here are a lot of different import-export plugins that are not enabled by the default. So I can, I want the DirectX format. And that was probably an export plugin, but it can handle a lot of different formats. And these are just the plugins that are bundled into the download. There are other separate plugins that you can download from the internet. Anyone can write a plugin for Blender. I've written a couple of them, simple plugins, but there is an open API, and there's no cost in. You don't have to buy a software development kit. Anyone can write their own plugin if you can. Right? Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
The CAD CAD question.
Yeah.
Can you set the dimensions easily? Like you come from Fusion 360.
Yes.
Yeah.
Blender's strong point isn't CAD. It's meant to make organic and interesting shape, not for engineering. But it has some support for for making. Let's cursor to center. Shift A brings up the add menu. So I can now add a cube. And here I can see that it has a radius of 1. I can make it 2.3, a bit bigger. If I bring up this panel here, I can see that my cube is now 4.6 Blender units. I often use Blender units the same as millimeters. So I think this model here, model in Blender yesterday, it's like 100 Blender units long, so it's 100 millimeters long. You can decide for a different scale if you want to. You can use 1 centimeter as a Blender unit. And if you're going to make very big models, you probably want to, because you will run into some trouble with the viewport if your model is like 500 or 1,000 Blender units. The camera will start to clip it. So that depends on what you are going to use the model for, finally. But small objects like this, it works very good with 1 Blender unit. It's 1 millimeter. So if I go into edit mode here, and I want to insert this face, instead of dragging the mouse, you can see here the thickness of the inset, 0.55 millimeters, and trying to get it exact here it's a challenge. So I can just type 0.75, enter. Now it's exactly that. I want to extrude this by 1.23 millimeters. I will want to have a round hole here, so I move the cursor here. The cursor is where new objects will appear. I make a circle here, and the circle should be made out of 128 vertices. The radius should be 0.8. You see these coordinate systems here. The red one is X, the green one is Y, and the blue is Z. So when I rotate things, and that accounts for moving as well, if I press X, Y, or Z, I limit the edit to that axis. So I press R for rotate. I can rotate, and now if I press Y, I rotate this object around the Y-axis, and I want it to rest on this surface, so then I must rotate it 90 degrees. So I type 90, and now it's perfectly aligned with this face. And I don't want this face, so I want this circle and this rectangle here to be joined into one face. I can use bridge edge loops. Oops, that didn't work. Let's first do it like this. I extrude this, and then I want to extrude. I want the hole to be along the x-axis, so I just press X. Now I can extrude it along the X. The hole should be 2 millimeters deep, so I type -2. Let's see if the bridging works better now. Yeah, it did. Did it answer the question?
Yes.
Excellent. Yes?
Question, this is one layer. So let's say you would like to design something in multi-material or multi-colors and so on. You want to switch different layers
Yes.
in the same thing. How do you do that one? Because everything you showed us right now is like one layer. It's
Yes.
one material.
Yes, yes. So I add a sphere inside here, and I can edit that separately. Now in the outliner here, I have this sphere and I have this cube. They're separate objects, like a multi-material. I can select both of them. Now both are selected. When I do my export, and they will be exported
It's
together.
different STLs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it same STL file, but different objects?
But you want a multi-material STL.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not very familiar with multi-material.
Okay.
So I can't really say how you're going to do that inside Blender, but I don't know how to prepare it for the slicer. But you can have multiple objects in one scene. It's good at the moment. For the next release, 2.8, they're going to make a much better layering systems for that you can organize into any number of layers. Right now, we just have this small grid here. So if I select an object and press M, I can select a layer to move it to. This is just things. I want to work in one file, and I want many different objects. I don't want to see all of them at the same time. So I'll always move items between the layers, and I want to keep this object, but I don't want to see it. I want to save it for later. So now move it to another layer and continue my work.
Can you show all layers at once?
Yes, you can always shift-click layers. Now we see both of these at the same time, or I can just click one. Now we hide this one.
Can you save layers as separate STLs?
No, but you can batch export every different object. I can another one. Let me show one of the files I'm working on. Yeah, let's take this one. So I made a little Bronze Age hut. It's very simple and it's very quick, but I printed a bunch of these and went to my son's school, and they painted them up and made little Bronze Age scenes. So the roof here, you can't print this without adding support along the rim here. So I printed it separately. So it's different objects. And I have the objects and the walls objects. I select both of them, and when I export to STL, I can toggle on the batch mode, and every object will then be exported to their to a file name. If I erase this, or I can add 3D meetup here, and export. "3D meetup" will be appended. Yeah, here are all the STL files. I forgot to. It exported every object in the scene because I forgot to click selection only. So you might want to check that if you have a lot of objects. Right.
Do you have any examples when you have used a scanner and you have a scanned 3D object model?
Sorry, no. I have. I'm not sure I can. When making models for computer games, you make them very detailed. Sculpt tiny details, so almost the wrinkles of the eye and the eyelids and so on. But that is often not possible to have that kind of geometry in the computer game. So it's you make a simpler model for the game and then render all the details as texture maps, normal maps. So there are some workflows where you have a very detailed object and want to preserve some of the detail in a simpler model. I can quickly show it here. Wow, really lot of booleans here. Just apply all of them. So that this was a 3D scan, a very messy object. I'm going to add a plane here. This is a very small plane at the moment, so we're going to try and take a piece of the wall here. And add some more geometry. Right, now we want to project this mesh onto the other. And there is a modifier called shrink wrap, like that. And if I hide the original wall, you can see that, yeah, you can't see much of the finer details. It's much simpler mesh. So that is one way of working with it. There are several others as well. If I go into this model and subdivide it, giving it a bit more detail, you can soon see that we're going to have the real wall pattern emerge. Let's subdivide it one more time. You can see that actually it's not going into the recesses. Let's bring out the walls. Now we do it like this instead. You see that there's a gray version of the object here, and that is the projective mesh. Now we're going to project along the exact x-axis in both positive and negative direction. Let's see how that looks. Oops. Oh, strange behavior there. Yeah. A lot of different ways to work with this. Any more questions? Yes?
You mentioned it was more for organic modeling, but
yeah.
Are there really things that stops you using Blender even if you're more like a CAD person?
No. I heard from the Autodesk guys that you can simulate a machine in Fusion 360, for instance. I haven't seen it, and I don't know that much about it, but there was one guy, he made a working CNC machine inside Fusion 360. That's not possible in Blender. And you can design all...
Blender game engine?
Yes, there is a Blender game engine. It might be possible to make the milling machine in the game engine. But yeah, so there are probably better ways to do it, but you can do it. Gummy bears?
Do you need a very powerful machine to use Blender?
No. To edit simple models, you need a very simple machine. But when it comes to rendering, you will have to wait a lot longer for your renders to finish. Obviously, it works with the graphics card, the GPU in your machine, and if you have a better graphics card, you will get better rendering times. And if you have a lot of polygons in your models, you will have to wait, and the interface will be more sluggish after a while. But that's when you have a couple of millions of polygons, depending on what you use it for. It will become slower and slower quicker if you have a cheaper machine. But for basic usage, should be able to use any machine. I'm thinking you want to see some sculpting, for instance. Let's start with this one. Instead of going into edit mode, I will go into sculpt mode. I will turn on dynamic topology. Right now there are like 2 polygons per side, and if there's not much geometry to work with. There's just 1 vertex along each corner. But if I turn on dynamic topology, I can add geometry as I draw it here. Now you see that it's mirrored, and that can be helpful sometimes. For instance, if you want to sculpt a face to be somewhat symmetrical at least. So, but I can turn that off. So there are different sculpt brushes. This is a fairly simple brush. We just add this blob of clay to the object. It's like when you do frostings on a cake. Draw with the frosting or chocolate. So I can make my brush a bit bigger, make a bulge here, and if I hold down Control, I will draw negatively. So I will make a hole. I can go in and I can start to build that up again. And of course, if I want to, I can increase the detail size. I like to have more details. So this is 12 pixels will be one polygon here. So let's go down to 5 pixels. And now you see that the details are much finer here. You can see that on the bottom here, there are not many polygons, but as I've sculpted here, the polygons are added where I sculpt. So there's a eye thing. Let's switch brush for a second. This is the snake hook, and it's quite fun to play with. I think that looks like a nice tentacle, but it's a bit thin. So I use the inflate brush to make it a bit fatter. I can also you can see that when I zoom out, the polygons are getting bigger, and I can zoom in, and the polygons will get smaller. You see that here the polygons are quite small, but still we see the pattern from the bigger polygons. So I can hold down Shift and I will smooth everything out. So I add the detail here and then I smooth it. I don't want to think about what is this. There are many different brushes here. We can use the crease brush. That is if you want to have like lines. You can etch lines into your models like this.
Are you using a tablet pen at home, or do you use the mouse?
I use the mouse. I don't use my sculpting for precision work. So I don't think I need I seldom sculpt faces or creatures. So I sculpt rock faces, and then it doesn't matter if it looks a bit odd. It's only more natural. But if you're serious about sculpting, you should probably have a digitizer pen and work with it. It's easier to control. But it's also an investment. It's a bit of a learning curve. I think we have a few minutes left. Any last questions? Do you want to see anything?
How would you animate it?
Sorry?
Be able to animate the sculpture.
Yes, I can animate the sculpture. That will take a bit more than 5 minutes. I can try. I can try. Let's add a armature here. So this is a bone. Bones are used to control animation. Let's move it into the. We will make it very simple. So the bone will control only these tentacle here. So we will make the object here will be a child to the skeleton, the armature. Not at all sure that this will work. We go into pose mode with this. Oh, it did work. So now I can rotate. Oh, since this is a root node, it controls everything. But I can around. If I go back into edit mode and make a few more of these. And back into pose mode. No, I have to parent it again. So clear parent. Clear parent. Ah, crap. Or what is it? We need to. Yeah, it will probably work. Will it? Clear pose. This is not what I use Blender for normally. Do you have any input?
No.
We should reset the pose.
I think you need to rearrange the bones according to the mesh you have already.
Yeah, but when I go into edit mode for the bones, they're aligned.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just let's try. Make parent with automatic weights. Yeah, hooray! Pose mode. So one thing I can do that helps with this is that I can turn on X-ray. Now I will see my skeleton through the model wherever I am. I can see it deforms quite nicely. If I make an animation out of this, I can export it and make a computer game. Probably not this model though. So what is the name of the simple fire?
Quick fire.
Quick.
Quick smoke.
No. Yeah. Now the tentacle is smoking. You know how to enable the fire as well? Is it somewhere here in the...
You just check the cube or the tentacle. You have to and then this is
I think that will have to wait till another opportunity. I know that the tutorial that Andrew Price has, it ends with setting fire to an object like this.
I think if you just move the timeline to somewhere in the middle and remove your tentacles and press I, you can have it move to that place.
Yes, yes, yes.
During this animation you already have. So you can
Yeah.
just move it there a bit.
This is how animation works. We start from the beginning. And then at this point in time, we want it to be like this. And then we add keyframes, this. And I can then let's play that. Oh, the smoke actually follows it. That's quite nice. Right. I think that concludes it. So I will be out in the venue and working. And feel free to talk to me about anything and any more vendor stuff. Thank you very much.